Aaron Rodgers, hey, I'm very happy to see him exit the division. I'm not going to lie. This was a trade. We knew the trade was coming. It was just kind of what form is it going to take? And I'll be honest, I think the Jets really played themselves on this thing because the market for Aaron Rodgers was basically one team. And people are still arguing on Twitter about who had the leverage here. And you can look at this deal and you can point to it and say, well, clearly Green Bay had the leverage because they got a really nice deal. I'm still not so sure that's true. I think if they had the leverage, it's because the Jets almost handed it to him. That he had a market of one team. If he doesn't go anywhere, then the Packers are left with a quarterback who does not like them, does not want to play for them, that they owe a ton of money to. That's not a good situation to be in. Whereas the Jets, obviously, they're back at ground zero for quarterback. They don't have their guy. Then they're starting to do things like, can we trade for Ryan Tannehill or something like that? But definitely a tough deal on both sides, but I love what the Packers got out of it. As a Vikings fan, I don't love it near so much, but as just like a regular old NFL fan, I feel like the Packers really did well because they got that switch of the first picks in this draft, which, 13, 15, not a big deal, but they get the second round pick and they get a second next year at the very least that's probably going to turn into a first. That's huge. The Jets really need to make that work now. The pressure is on them.
Yeah, I think the Jets they had a lot of other options on the table. I think you have to think that Lamar Jackson could have been gotten for pretty close to that amount. If it's just 2 first-round picks, that's close to what the Jets gave up to acquire Aaron Rodgers. And while Rodgers and Lamar have different skill sets, you have to think that a younger quarterback who is former MVP, led the league in touchdown passes, like this is also on the table. And then there was also speculation that Matthew Stafford was on the trading block and may have been in consideration if the Aaron Rodgers trade didn't go through. So I think that the Packers made out pretty well in this deal, all things considered. Aaron Rodgers could have just walked away or retired, and then they got nothing. So for them to get a move up and possibly get a play, I agree with you. Moving up a couple picks, getting an extra second, getting a possible first next year. There was draft equity to be had, and I think that the Packers did the best that they could given the situation that they were in. What are your takes on Jordan Love? We don't have a lot of data on him. He's filled in a couple years ago for Rodgers during the COVID stints. But other than that, he only played 21 dropbacks last year. Yeah, he was I think the 9th best PFF graded quarterback, but there's such a small sample size. You can't take much away from that. Is he going to be able to develop, or is this just a wait and see situation with the Packers?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of wait and see situation. And they know obviously a lot more than we know. Could practice every day. But there's a couple things I know. Number one, he's probably going to be pretty good for fantasy. Number two, you can probably rely on him because they really don't have anything to back him up with. This is going to be the Jordan Love show, I think, for pretty much all 16 games. He would have to absolutely faceplant and make them go out and get a Case Keenum or somebody like that. So it would have to be just awful. And the other thing I know is he's going to look very, very good at least 2 games a year at Minnesota and when Minnesota comes to Green Bay, because that's the way it always seems to go with Packers quarterbacks. So
I don't know. This is Jordan Love we're talking about, not Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers. However,
hey, we made David Blau look all right. Blau was when he was with Detroit. It doesn't matter what quarterback anybody throws up against the Vikings; they find a way to make him look spectacular almost all the time. So that's just the baseline. If you don't mind, though, Bradley, let's go back. I want to ask you one more question about Aaron Rodgers, if I can.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Do you think he's dusted?
No.
No?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I think Aaron Rodgers played almost all of last year with a broken thumb, and that's why we saw a lot of interceptions and a lot of missed throws. He had the right ideas. He knew where the ball was supposed to be, and it's also highlighted by at the beginning of the season when he was healthy, a lot of rookie drops. And if you remember at the beginning of the year, even game 1, first drive of the season, Christian Watson drops an 80-yard touchdown. And that is
against
against the Vikings. But it's emblematic of what happened last year is during the healthy games, the rookie receivers like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson were not able to produce. And then when Aaron Rodgers broke his thumb, a third of the way through the season,
Yep.
It was not the same. Like, he threw multiple interceptions against Detroit. Extremely uncharacteristic of him. The reality is that Aaron Rodgers is still that good, that bad man. And even if we take a step back and say, oh, it was a step back year for Aaron Rodgers, like, he was still top 10, top 12 in almost every efficiency metric, PFF grades, NFL passer ratings, completion percentage, like all of those things. He was still not a bad quarterback last year. It's just that he was dealing with that broken thumb that he eventually admitted to. Like, it took 6 weeks after it actually happened for that to come out. And as a Packers fan, I'm watching this. I'm like, he makes these throws. He just can't grip the ball. So I don't think he's dusted at all. I think that there are some talking heads on Twitter who are saying, oh, he's dust. He's terrible. Why are the Jets? This is such a bad trade. No, the Jets know what they're getting in Aaron Rodgers, and this is a chips-in move for a Super Bowl. You've got a great defense. You've got a decent enough offensive line. You've got an absolute stud wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. You've also got other nice complementary pieces in Alan Lazard. Corey Davis is still on this team. Tyler Conklin is respectable. Did I mention Breece Hall yet? Because Breece Hall is an absolute monster. Okay, and he's good. And even like the respectable Michael Carter in the backfield, he can still catch passes, and you could see him being a nice change of pace back, a good pass catching complement there. The Jets are primed for a playoff run. They're primed for a Super Bowl run with Aaron Rodgers as this final piece. And this, I think, is the Rams 2.0, in that there were pieces in place for the Rams to be making moves, and they just needed Matthew Stafford. And so this is the Jets' Matthew Stafford move.
All right. For the record, I agree with you. And only one more small question: how many years until Aaron Rodgers is a Minnesota Viking?
Oh, God, I refuse to answer that. Gosh, that's like taking a knife and just skewering me.